Let's go. No, Timothy. Yay. So happy that we're finally doing this.
Yes, it's great to be here.
Yeah. And I think this whole thing came about, right? Because we always have this kind of chatting sessions where sometimes we don't coach each other, but we end up talking about topics that are important to us. And I thought this would be a good way to share with people some of our thoughts, especially for us who are just starting out as coaches.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a lot of struggles, insecurities that we feel as coaches ourselves. But I'm grateful for the community that we have.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what I want to do is to share this kind of support and happiness and joy with people who are not coaches. And that's the people that we want to reach out to, right? Because as coaches, we are very lucky. We get peer coaching.
Because we get coached, we coach each other, right? So we get coached for free, kind of. But I think the whole process of going through coaching really makes a difference, whether you are the coach or whether you're being coached. It's a very reflective time, right? So especially for me, I learned as much, practicing to be a coach as I did from being coached, right? I think it's just sometimes to reflect on things that I'm doing and whether it makes sense in the greater scheme of what I want. And also sometimes it's just listening to how other people coach and learning things from each other, right? Because I mean, everybody's got something to learn. There's no matter how long you've done this, right? I think there's something that you can improve on. And as long as you go in with the mindset that you can learn something from it and you can get something out of the session, I think that no time that's spent is wasted. If you go in and you think that I want to clear this and I want to get this over with, then you are not going to get the most out of it. Right? So it really boils down to what kind of mindset you're bringing to some of these practices and what we're doing. And I guess it applies to every situation that we go through in life. Right? So it's not just coaching and not just this particular aspect, right? If you come in with a mindset that things are what they are, it's just like that, and then you'll never be open enough to look at possibilities. Right? That's kind of what the foundation of coaching is, right? If you want to come into a coaching session, you need to be open to possibilities. If you come in with a closed mindset and you don't want to listen or to yourself, or you don't want to explore deeper when being probed, then you're not going to get the most out of a coaching session either.
But how do you reach this point of that you want to do something to change the status quo?
It's really a choice, I think. Right? I don't think you wake up one day and say, suddenly you feel like you're going to make changes in your life. I think it's um it's progression, right? In where you think you want to go. It's a bit of clarity, I guess, you need to have in terms of a direction, but it's also a choice, right? So you can have goals, and a lot of people set goals, right? And they want to do this and they want to do that. I want to be a millionaire. I want to, to level up my business 10x. Um, Goals are good, but and goals keep you focused if you keep looking at them. But you need to make choices, right? So if you do if you do the same thing, you get the same results, right? So that's definition of insanity, like doing the same thing and hoping they get different results. But if you are open to changes and you are open to other possibilities, other opportunities, perhaps, um, and you give yourself the bandwidth to explore that, then the possibilities are endless. I feel, right? It,
But it also requires commitment, right? I think it's important for all of us to have goals.
mm-hmm.
It keeps us motivated. But often in life, we say we have this goal, we want to do this, we want to do that. But what we lack, it's the commitment. And actually, this came to me last night as I was thinking about how I started on my coaching journey, right? Actually, it was one day that I felt so frustrated with my work. And because I keep hearing about coaching, coaches, and I just decided that, okay, never mind, let me just go and find out what coaching is all about by myself. So that's how I got started on this whole ICF coaching journey.
So it clicked for you, lah. Something triggered for you.
It triggered, I was like, enough, like, okay, I'm just going to do something because I feel very constricted.
Mm.
And I guess this leads to what we are both feeling quite strongly for, which is this topic of freedom, right?
Mm.
Coaching really gave me the freedom.
Mm.
Even though it's hard, and I was listening to a podcast by one of the executive coaches from the Marshall Goldsmith Center. They're saying that for the first 5 to 10 years, be prepared that you might be going through a hard time as a entrepreneur yourself. But it's this sense of freedom that I'm very comfortable with, even though it's hard right now. And like you say, with the freedom, you are able to make choices.
It's really that, right? Because I mean, okay, don't talk about coaching on its own, right? Any business that you want to start, the starting point is tough, right? So I've run 2 different businesses already. First business I ran for a year and a half, almost 2 years, and I closed it off. Right? But it was a very painful 2 years. It's that learning process, right? So the second business I've been running for 2 years, and we are transitioning. So it was good for the first 1.5 years, and then things changed, and then I had to adjust, right? So we are adjusting to that change, and that's the constant thing about running businesses. You need to build, you need to create momentum. So coaching is no different from that, right? What I like about it, uh, or what I like about entrepreneurship and running business is the fact that I get to choose what I want to do. You know, how I manage my time, what I want to do, you know, who I want to focus on, you know, what's meaningful to me. You know, in the corporate world, I always tell people my time's not really mine, right? Because I get pulled into meetings, I have to do certain things, you know, I gotta manage my staff, you know, I've got to fly to go and manage my staff. I mean, I did regional work, so I need to fly to other locations to manage staff. And it takes a lot of time. I mean, I always remember I had to go Hong Kong quite a bit, right? I fly off first or second flight. Okay, so I fly out the 8:30 flight in the morning. I reach Hong Kong like 2, 3 o'clock. You know, by the time I check in, I reach the office, it's probably almost the end of the day already. And so that's like one day gone. And then I fly back, it's more or less the same thing. So it's not very efficient use of my time. You know, yes, I work very hard and I do a lot of things when I'm there, but I don't really have a choice whether I want to be there or not. You know, people think that traveling for business is, you know, wow, you get to go here, go there.
Glamorous.
It's not that fun, lah. Honestly, when you do it, when you keep doing it, it's not that fun. It's a very lonely experience, especially if you're flying alone. You know, so it's different. So you have choice. I remember when I first started this company, I was engaged to MC a conference. So it's like a 3-day conference. And then second day I was in the lift coming up to it was a hotel, right? So coming up to the venue, the room, and I met some of the participants in the lift and they were asking me what I did, right? So I said I left, you know, corporate world, I'm starting my own business, I'm running this. And they asked me what I liked about it. I told them, you know, I like the control. Right? Like control over my time. Lah. And he said, "Wow, control." I said, control's not a bad thing. Lah. You know, control gives me a choice of whether I want to do something or I don't want to do something, or I want to use my time for other things like family. You know, I have a choice over what I want to do. And if I have a focus, like in my coaching business and what I want to do, it's really creating impact, and I get a choice as to who I want to work with. You know, whether I feel I can bring value to them. I have a choice as to how much coaching I want to do, right? So I can block off and I can say that I want to do 3 clients this a day. You know, I can do, I mean, I have time to do 6, 7 clients, but do I want to do that? No, I don't. If I don't want to do that, I can say, no, I'm going to take on, you know, X number of clients. And I want to make my time available to do other things that I have to do, or that I want to do. And that's important to me because, you know, throughout my corporate life, I had to make choices. I used to work like crazy hours in the beginning of my corporate life. I used to work until like sometimes 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 o'clock. And then next day come in the office at 9. And then all weekends got to work. And I started having a family. I realized that, hey, I cannot like that, right? If I keep doing this, right, something's wrong. And I had to decide, okay, work's never done, right? I
Yeah.
had 7 o'clock, I cut it off, I go back home. You know, kids go to sleep. Okay, you know, if I've got time, I carry on. But these are choices that we have to make, right? And the choices are important because there's a bigger picture besides what we are doing, and I think we need to look a little bit further, a little bit more macro in our perspective to be able to understand why we need to do certain things.
I totally empathize with you, and it reminded me of this 2 stupid incidents in the past when I was still working in the corporate, right? I was working till past midnight, and my office is in it was in the far east, some ulu place. And what happened was I called for a taxi to pick me up from office to go home. But what happened was I actually put in the wrong pickup place to pick me up from home to send me to office. And when I saw the notification that my taxi is here, I was like, hey, but where's the taxi? That's when I realized I put in the wrong location. I just finished work, but all I was thinking of was going to work. And I did it twice in my life there. I mean, thinking of it now is very funny. It's very funny now. It's very funny, but when it happened, then it was like, wow, I was really stretched.
Mm-hmm.
That was a clear sign of overworking, but I had no choice but to tell myself, no, cannot, maybe bite the bullet and move on. And I love my work. I really love it and enjoy what I was doing back then. I enjoyed my time back then in that company, but coming to think of it now, I feel that my life right now is in no less meaningful than to back then. In fact, I feel that I have a much better quality of life now.
And I would agree. So you know, when I can't remember when it was, a few months ago, right? When my wife asked me, right, so how do you feel about, you know, what you're doing now? The one thing I told her was, I feel happier, right? And I think that's important because it's, you know, we work and we try to achieve things, but we don't always consider what we need as people, right? So, you know, there's a lot of talk about self-care and that kind of thing, but really, I mean, especially as Singaporeans, right, we tend to push ourselves very hard. Right? We're very goal-oriented, we're very task-oriented. We always look at achievements by what we do, right? And that's our measure of success. So people ask you, like, oh, when you look on social media, everybody's talking about awards they get. You know, I've got, you know, best property agent for the month, you know, insurance sales, you know, best performer. It's always about that, right? You know, when we got our ACC, we talk about, you know, we got ACC. Yeah, but we are achievement oriented as a society. And we sometimes forget the cost of doing that, right? There is a cost to everything that you do. The guy that achieved incredible sales for property, he spent a lot of time doing that. Not everybody's lucky to close like $20 million house kind of sales. People put in a lot of work to do that, and something's got to give lah. There's everything that you do, everything that you choose, there is a consequence to it. Right? So working hard had a consequence. I mean, I neglected family, right? I didn't have the time to spend with them, and so I had to make a choice to change that. Right? So moving out into entrepreneurship is a choice. Right? Or embracing it is a choice, at least, right? And building it is a choice. And there are flip sides to it, right? There's a lack of stability because you're building a business, and revenues, it's flexible, it's fluid, right? Depending on what you do.
I mean, we all need to pay the bills.
Yeah. So, but I've got good months, I've got bad months. It's like that, right? With a business. Until you scale enough to achieve a certain amount of stability. And that's the flip side to it. But the other side is really scalability. It's choosing what you want to do. It's being very precise in terms of your focus, right? So even coaching is a very large area. What kind of clients do you want? Who do you think you will have the most impact with? Where can you bring the most value? What kind of clients? And that's really where you want to zoom in and focus on, right? Because if I mean, in a corporate setting, people tell you what to do, you have boundaries, you have job descriptions, you're supposed to be doing certain things. In something like running a business, you really define your own parameters, right? So you define your own clients, you define what you want to do. But these are things that you have to do, right? Because if not, you will be all over the place. So freedom has that flip side as well. It also gives you, I mean, things that you talked about, commitment, discipline. If you don't have that, then it's easy to just sit at home every day and watch Netflix as well. Right? No, there's nobody chasing you to do anything. So if you don't have the discipline to do something when you're running a business, then you will never do it. You will end up finding a lot of excuses not to do it. I'm too tired today. I had a long weekend. Did so many things. Today I don't feel like doing anything, so I don't want to do anything. And then
But it's
tomorrow also feel like
normal.
that. So
It's
yeah, so
normal
it's
actually.
okay. It's okay to take breaks. I mean, there's
Uh-huh.
nothing wrong with taking breaks. But if you want to achieve something, you also need to have a plan, right? And you need to stick to the plan to a certain extent. So it's not that you cannot sit down and watch Netflix lah. It's nice lah. People working and then you're down there watching TV, but you still need to achieve things within the day, right? And you need to plan it out lah. So if you're building something, then you need to think about what you need to do to build, get things done. I think we had conversations about this before, right? How we sometimes don't plan, then procrastinate, and then we never get it done. So that's the thing, because there's nobody chasing you to do it. You've got to kind of chase yourself to do it. Right?
It's okay. Never mind. You can talk. You can talk to a coach. I'm here for you if you need to get the motivation. The coach is not going to chase you to do it, but can help you find what pushes you to do it.
Yeah, it's what drives you. No, that's what I like about coaching, right? So it thinks about not just what you need to do. Right? A lot of times when we think about training and mentoring, it's about solutioning. It's about giving you advice what to do. It's about telling you how to do stuff. What's this new framework that you need to follow to be able to achieve results. But it's not like that, right? So at the end of the day, when you want to do something, you will do it. But the question is, what do you need, or what's inside of you that drives you to do something? And that's really where you want to tap in on, because if you cannot figure out what drives you and you don't know what that switch is, right, you will find it hard to do things, right? So no matter what framework I give you, no matter what kind of 5-step program I give you, you don't know what motivates you to complete it, right? And that's really where the value of coaching is. It explores what your motivators are, how to tap on it, really create awareness of what they are. Because sometimes but it's in the back of your mind, right? You don't really think about stuff that we do. We're kind of programmed a certain way. Right? So and I feel that the drivers are probably the most important thing for behaviors.
I read somewhere that probably from Dr. Marshall Reynolds' book is that our brains, they are wired in such a way that they tend to resist changes, which is why every time we set a goal, we want to do something, we will always come out with a but. And it is the but that holds us back. What I'm grateful now about being a coach now is you start to get more aware of the words that you use. Like, hey, why did I use this word? And sometimes I catch myself when I say something and I suddenly want to throw out a but, right? I'm like, okay, no, I cannot say it. How should I reframe it? And I think that has helped me in a lot of situations to know when I need to seek help and when I can actually do things on my own.
Yeah, but we can change, right? So I mean, just yesterday, right? So not yesterday, Saturday, right? So I went into NTUC Learning Hub and I went to speak to a couple of classes doing M2 and M1, right? So and I talked about what changed for me, that whole journey, right? So you talk about being habits, right? So things that we are created, that we are wired to do, it can change, right? So for example, coming into coaching training or coach training, right? Coming from a corporate background, your brain is wired to solution, right? So every time you see a problem, the first thing your brain goes to is, how do I fix this? And how do I solve this? No, what do I need to do? And that was the automatic response whenever somebody, I mean, the first few coaching practices that we did in class, every time somebody brings up a problem that they want to talk about, my brain goes into, okay, what do I tell you to solve the problem? And that was very hard for me. So you can't just like overnight change the way your brain thinks, right? So you're right, it's like that. But over the course of the last year, when we've been going through that, right, I find it easier and easier to stop myself from doing that. So it was a situation where I have to deliberately stop myself from saying certain things, right, to give advice, to give solutions. But as we went along, right, it wasn't just saying, I could stop myself from even thinking about solutions. Right? I didn't go to that place where I was thinking about how to solve somebody's problem. And I found that the coaching process became a lot easier when I did that. Because now I could be a bit more present. Instead of the brain working, trying to solve things, right? I could listen to what the person's saying and try to probe a little bit more and get a little bit more depth in the conversations, explore a bit further. The drivers that I was talking about, right? Yeah, those are the things that I would prefer to explore with a coachee. And I found it was a lot easier to do that as we went along. So it's a little bit of reprogramming your brain or creating new connections in the brain, right? Such that you can, I mean, it won't be a situation where I cannot solution anymore, right? I think I always will be able to do that, but it's kind of shifting your focus to a different way of thinking, and just creating that new connections in the brain so that you can think a certain way, like a coach. And so it's possible to change that over time, but it was a deliberate choice, right? Again, this word choice, right? It's a deliberate choice not to do certain things and to do certain things, right? To not focus on just thinking of how to solve something, to thinking about what this person needs, what your needs are, where are we going with this, how can I facilitate that process, in that conversation. And then the focus shifted, and then that whole conversation becomes a lot easier. At least I feel, right, for me. And that's just addressing the stuff that I have to deal with in this whole process. But it helped me, right? Just to shift away from that. And like when I talk to the M1 class, M1 is just starting, right? So
We've all been there.
yeah, I told them myself, I understand, right? So it's very difficult. And it's a weekend class, right? So weekend class, generally you're still in a corporate environment. That's why you come for a weekend class, right? So they probably still have to operate that way. Because they run teams, they need to give instructions to their staff. They need to solve every time a problem comes up. So it's a different approach for that kind of scenario. But when they switch and start thinking like a coach, then it applies to different when you want to do something different, like when you want to coach your staff. But like, so when I shared that, they all started laughing because I think they're at the stage where they're still trying to figure out what they're supposed to be doing with this whole thing about coaching.
We can relate to it because we are like, wait, no, that's solutioning. Stop. What do you mean?
It's still something that we do, right? Because I mean, like I have kids, so with kids, it's a lot of telling them what to do. So I got to tell you every time there's a problem, they're like, "Daddy, what to do?" And if I ask them, "So what should you be doing?" They have absolutely no idea. I feel that way with some people when I coach. So with some people, if I know the assumption is always that that coaching, the answer to your problem is within you, right? That's the premise when we come to coaching. But sometimes there are situations where people don't have the knowledge or they don't have the experience, a little bit of a gap, right, to actually find their way out of the problem. So they've explored everything that they know and they don't know anything else. And I see that with people who are a little bit younger, like my kids, right? So if I ask them something and I try to coach them and ask them to figure out a solution, they have no idea how to solve it because they just don't have the knowledge or the experience to be able to come up with an answer. So
But I mean, in a coaching conversation, the truth is we don't know where the client wants to go. Every conversation is the coach and the client goes on a journey to a destination that the coach doesn't even know where to. Neither the client sometimes. But how I see coaching is that it helps or it enables the client to see possibilities out of their existing situation. They may not have the knowledge. For example, I don't have the knowledge on, say, for example, how do I build a website? But through a coaching session, what I figured out was, yeah, I can use templates. I can Google a bit, watch some YouTube videos to help me. And well, I did it. Not the most fancy looking website, but at least it's functional in something, right?
mm-hmm.
So I think that is the one thing about coaching. A lot of people don't understand that. Yeah, I must get something out of it. But sometimes the changes take place more gradual than immediate. Like when my mentor, Janet, coached me, I didn't get the aha moment immediately. And would you discount her? You wouldn't. She's a master coach, ACC, and she is very, very reputable. But both my sessions with her after she coached me, I can see for myself the immediate shift after I've got the message sink into me. And that is something very sustainable in terms of change. And I think that's something we do as a coach, right? That's why we say the impact is very big. And for something that is so impactful, it requires a lot of work and effort for the coach to be able to walk alongside with the client. I don't know if this is something that you agree with.
I think it's a process, right? So I do agree that it does take time. And there needs to be, I think there needs to be a better understanding of what coaching is. I do believe that a lot of the changes can be lasting if you reach the core of what drives the person to do something, right? And those changes will make can be a very lasting effect rather than just looking at solutioning. Solutioning sometimes is it's a very temporary thing, right? And it doesn't really help you long term in terms of building and understanding what you should be doing. But you're right. I mean, coaching sessions don't always have that immediate impact, and so as as a coach, you don't always get discouraged by the fact that this person didn't get an aha moment. I I and as a coachee, you need to also be aware that sometimes it takes time and it's a process. And so if I look at each session, it's also about what value you give to the person and or what they get out of that session. Right? And at the end of the day, if they move one step closer to their goal, I mean, it may not be an aha moment, but it could have been some form of clarity, right? So they see things a little bit clearer than when they came into the session. Then I think we're moving in the right direction, and then that time is well spent. If they get nothing out of the session, then I'm a bit worried, right? So either they are not right for coaching or just not the right coach for you, right? Which could happen. I mean, it's not something that it's not a case where no matter what kind of coach you are, you can coach everybody. I do feel that there is a certain amount of chemistry that's required because you need to be comfortable with the person as well, right? So for somebody to open up to me, you need to be comfortable with me. And if you're not, then I don't feel that the coaching is as effective because it would be very superficial. Every time I ask you something, you would give me. I mean, I've had people who give me like one-line answers, and there's not a lot that you can do to kind of push them because they're not willing to open up and share. Right? And then it could be a situation where I may not be the right person for you because you may not be comfortable sharing deeper with me, and it's fine because somebody else could be a more effective coach for you, right? So I said, I'm gonna find Mavis. Don't. You never know, right? So it's really hard to tell whether somebody can connect with you or not. And that's also why we have discovery calls, to see whether there's actually some form of connection, whether you're comfortable with each other before we actually start the coaching process. But even through the coaching process, it may be a situation where you are not comfortable with the coach, or you maybe not comfortable with the amount that I push you, right? And we need to taper that as well. So it really depends on the situation. There's a lot of dynamics in play, and it's okay, I guess. You just need to find the right person for you. I don't think it's a problem with the process because coaching, as long as you're ready to be coached and you're willing to be coached, I think it can work for anyone. Right? It's sometimes just who coaches you. I do feel that there's a amount of chemistry.
This is where the client has the freedom, the free will to make the choice of who they connect with as their coach. You're right, connection between the client and the coach is very, very important, which is why we cannot coach everybody.
I don't want to coach everybody either. though I say I want to create an impact, right? I think you also need to scope based on where you feel is best use of your time, right? And there will be groups of people that I feel that I could do a lot more work with. Some people that or some situations that I may not be comfortable with coaching as well, because we all have our own biases as well, right? So we've all been through our own journeys. We have our own triggers. So the worst thing that could happen is somebody comes in with a problem that triggers you, and then you have problem concentrating on the problem. And I want to be effective. I want to really be able to give value to my clients, and I don't want to be a situation where I'm trying to suppress stuff, because what you are going through, it just reminds me of what I had to go through.
Mm.
And that's difficult for me unless I've dealt with some of these things and I feel that I can deal with it, and I could be of value to the person. If not, there are pockets of people that I feel that I could possibly give best value for.
Interesting, because I see it the other way from
Yeah.
you. Yeah, because the things that I have gone through in life, it's interesting because in a lot of my coaching conversations now, right, the things that my clients bring up, right, are very familiar because they're similar to what I have gone through myself personally in the past. And one of my friends mentioned this, this is the law of attraction. But am I exercising judgment during a coaching conversation? I think you can be the best judge because you peer coach each other. I don't think I carried any judgment into that conversation, and I was really coaching.
I don't think it's not possible to do that, right? So it can be a case where you deal with, because you have affinity for that, or you want to help people who have gone through the same situations as you, right? And I think a lot of people feel that way. To me, that I feel that there is a danger as well, right? So you need to be very clear about what you want to do with that, because the moment you start going back and looking at people who have gone through similar situations as you, then you start thinking about what you went through that could trigger you, and you also start thinking about what they should be doing to get out of that situation, right? So that's the danger of going through that. Like, somebody who's got retrenched and then they found their way out, they constantly talk about what they did to get out of it, right? And they think it's the best solution for everybody. I know somebody like that, right? So the danger is you are telling people that this is the solution because this is what I did and this is what I got out, how I got out of it, and this should work for you, and it doesn't, right? It worked for him, lah. It doesn't mean it works for everybody. But the problem with that is that because he's gone through that situation and he's come out and he's doing really well, he feels that it's the best solution for everybody. And then when he coaches, he starts talking about some of these things, and I think there's a danger for it.
A coach shouldn't be saying that, and a coach would not say that if you really follow the Holy Bible of the ICF framework.
Yeah, but that's the danger, right? Because you start thinking about your own experiences, and it comes from a place where you're trying to help people, right? And that I understand your situation because I went through it, right? And I managed to get out of it by doing this, right? And I know it sounds like training, but my point is I come from the perspective that I'm trying to help you also to go through this, but that's the danger, right? Because the danger is that you think that your experience will work, and you start telling people that this worked for me.
I think that is where the line needs to be drawn very clearly, especially now these days. People are asking me, so what's the difference between mentoring, counseling, therapy, consulting, and coaching. I mean, when I'm not coaching, when my coaching hat is not on, if you ask me about my own opinion when I'm not coaching you, sure, I will tell you this is what happened to me. I went through a very difficult exit in my last corporate job, and it led me to where I am now. And through coaching, I found the freedom that I want, which I hold in my hand, is aligned with my values and ethics. I know this is the path that I want to be. And my most recent discovery with my mentor is that she told me everyone else is taken. I need to be myself. And so I am now still trying to find out who Mavis is. But there are some non-negotiables that I know. And this is something that I would share when I'm not in a coaching session. But when I'm coaching, I won't tell people that, yeah, this is what you should be doing. And I think this is what I can't emphasize enough to people, that you don't hear from a coach that, hey, this is what you should be doing. Because a coach role is there to be your thinking partner, to help you really think and go through within yourself, right? What is it that you can do for yourself? And I think this is what is so empowering about coaching, because we see the whole human being as a whole, and having that potential within yourself that is unlimited. And my favorite equation is by Tim Galway. Performance is equals to potential minus interferences. And I really see how coaching comes into play, right? That you increase the potential, you decrease your interferences, and your performance will naturally go up. Performance in what area? Whichever area you want it to be.
I agree. So a coach really should operate from the perspective that you are partnering a person to address whatever they want to address, right? And I do agree that advice should be off the table when you're doing coaching. And I don't even like that situation where I put on this coach hat, and I don't think, then I switch and put on a consulting hat. And I feel that creates a situation where the client expects you to give advice at some point in time. Right? So I don't particularly like it as well in terms of that approach. So if you're engaging me to consult, I will consult. I'll tell you all you need to do. I mean, I do consulting as well, right? So if you're telling me to consult, I consult. And I will tell you where you need to address, what goes wrong, how you should change processes, what kind of advice do I give you. I will tell you. But if I'm doing coaching, right, it's not my direction that you need to worry about. It's your direction. It's where you want to go with this conversation. I'm just here to kind of prod you along, like, if you're talking about something, I'll just push you along the way, right? Ask you something that could throw a spanner in the works. That's my job. It's a little bit like a disruptor. Right? Go in and try to change and disrupt your thinking so that you will consider something else. And that's all I'm doing. I'm not trying to influence that change. I'm trying to get you to look at certain things in a different way and create your own solutions for it. And that's really our job. Disruptor. Quite like that. Huh? Coach is a disruptor.
Is that going to be right? Your new motto?
But it does make sense. We talk about disrupting everything nowadays, right? All your tech disruption and all that kind of thing. And that's essentially what we're doing, right? We're disrupting the mindset. You are putting, you're making people or putting people in an uncomfortable position where they have to consider something that they may not want to consider or they haven't considered. And because you bring them to that place, then the options for them are open. Right? Or the perspectives change because they're now looking at it from a different angle. That's really what we're doing, right?
I just want to bring it back to the topic of freedom because I think we are about time. What would you say, based on what we have shared today, to summarize, what has this freedom done for you?
Well, it's really allowed me to chart my own path, I think. You know, when I started this whole entrepreneurship journey, and it was tough, right? So 15 years in corporate and coming out and having people kind of, I mean, every day you go to office, you know kind of what you're supposed to be doing, you know what meetings you have, what you're supposed to do, to a point that there's like a clean slate and you have no idea what you're supposed to be doing. I didn't even know what business I wanted to go into, right? And it was really a lot of trial and error before. And it took me many years to reach this point where I'm thinking about coaching and training in a more deliberate way. You know, I left my job in 2016, so it's like 7 years, right? So it's been a while, and only in the last maybe 2 3 years, since 2020, was I really a bit clearer about what I wanted to do. And it's only this year that I actually decided to start looking at coaching in a more serious way. But it gave me that freedom to do that, right? And over the last few years, it's given me, it's kind of formulated my 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 passion, right? So I discovered, you know, what I really wanted to do, um, the impact I wanted to create, you know, and it got me excited. I'm actually excited to do a lot of the things that I want to do, and that's something that I probably wasn't. I never. I mean, you talked about liking your job, right? I like my job, honestly. When I was working in corporate, I like the stuff that I was doing, but I was nothing like this, like. I didn't get this kind of feeling, you know, that you're building something and you're very excited to build it, and you can just see far, and you know what kind of where you're going and what kind of impact you want to create, and it's a very exciting journey. And and all that's standing in the way is me. Right? So I had to get on this whole journey to get myself certified. I had to think about how I'm going to build this as a business, and that I'm the biggest stubborn block in this whole journey. And being able to see that helped me become able to plan it, right? And being unencumbered to be able to do something like this really helps. I don't have huge obstacles standing in the way for me to do something like this, and because of that, I'm able to plan my time, I'm able to achieve things as quickly as I want, you know, as long as I have some discipline about it, lah, right? So like, you know, clocking hours for coaching, that took a bit of planning, but it worked out eventually. I mean, we've had this conversation before. I set my target to get certified in November, and here we are in November, and we are both certified, right?
Yes, thank you.
So it's done, right? So we achieved the goal because we had targets and we planned it and we did it, right? But we had the freedom to play around with that time. We knew what we needed to do in that time, and we were focused, and we got it done. And so I mean, freedom is good, but freedom also has to come with a certain amount of discipline if you want to achieve certain goals.
Also encouraging discipline. I should be more disciplined as well.
We should be. I don't think you can. I don't think you can be less disciplined and succeed. So there is a certain amount of discipline that you have. Right? And it's even more when you are doing things on your own. Right? Because, like I said, it's very easy to find excuses not to do something. And I always tell people, if you want to, if you don't want to do something right, you will always be able to find an excuse not to do it.
Yeah.
If you want to do something, then you need to find a reason to do it, and then you will do it.
I like it how Marshall Goldsmith shared in one of the workshops that I attended, right? He used to tell his clients, so for every but that they use in the conversation, they will have to pay $20. And the $20, the money actually will be donated to a certain organization. Yeah.
Just start doing that.
Yeah lah, pay money to ourselves, right? $20 for every but.
By the end of the year, maybe enough to go for holiday.
Okay.
Price, actually.
Yeah.
I think we are
Thanks,
programmed that way. So it does take a while to change. Like I said, right? Every time something new happens, that's the way the brain goes, right?
I want to do it, but
then there's always an excuse not to do it,
Yes. But I'm glad you're doing this with me. So thank you so much, Tim. We will do a lot more fun and exciting things together.
Looking forward to it.
See you then next time.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.